had no advanced warning. Minister Gallant spoke with Secretary Austin as the operation was already underway.
More reaction now. Let's bring in Nizar Farsak, Lecturer of International Affairs at George Washington University, who's joining us now live from Washington, D.C. Nizar, pleasure to have you on the programme again. Well, what's your reaction to today's event? It does appear that this escalatory spiral is now moving faster.
Definitely. If indeed Israel managed to kill Nasrallah, that definitely puts a lot of the goals that Israel wanted to achieve there, because we need to remember that regardless of what they specifically are articulating in the media, the main goal is re-establishing Israel's deterrent power. It seems that the latest military successes they've had, including the symbolic ones, are there. So Israel arguably could argue, if we stop the war now, Israel could argue that its deterrence has been re-established and could, in theory, agree to a ceasefire. Now, will they do that or not? That's a different question. My assessment is that since they are already on several strong paths, I think they will continue with the wars both in Lebanon and in Gaza until the costs to Israel start mounting.
We just heard some reaction from our correspondent Reza Hatami in Tehran, where Iran and authorities there have once again, it seemed, declined to say what their reaction would be to it. And that has been a consistent theme since the beginning of the war in Gaza. It does appear that Iran is very reluctant to get involved in any major conflict with Israel.
Definitely. Iran is doing its best not to get drawn into a direct confrontation with Israel or the United States, for that matter, because that would increase the risk of the destruction of its nuclear program, and that's its number one priority. Of course, Hezbollah is an extremely important ally and asset in the region, but it's not more important than its nuclear program. So I think they are treading a very, very thin line.
What do you think will be the next diplomatic moves then, Nizar, when it comes to Israel's international allies? Benjamin Netanyahu arrived in New York. We expected him to be hit with a firestorm of diplomacy, and yet he signed off, it would appear, on this attack on Beirut. He made a very defiant speech where rather than even talking about a ceasefire, he never mentioned it once and doubled down on Israel's war aims.
That is correct, because from his assessment, he knew that if he manages to secure such an important political and military success, the pressure will be on him to accept a ceasefire with the argument of the international community that you've achieved your goals, you've achieved Israeli deterrence, you can cease the fire now. And of course, the U.S. is very eager on ending the war before the elections. And therefore, because Netanyahu wants to do more or wants to take advantage of the momentum he already has now, and the likelihood of him having so much military firepower available and the backing of the Israeli public, he wants to make the most out of it and extract the most, military wins as he can.
And it's probably worth pointing out that over the past year or so, Netanyahu has faced many difficult challenges where he's had to choose between Western allies, particularly the United States, and their advice, and the influences from within his own government. And I'm talking about the hardline influences on him. And on every occasion, it appears that he has sided with those hardline elements of his government, principally because they have the power to take him down.
Yes, but now he's in a way much better position. Now, having quote unquote achieved such a huge goal like killing Nasrallah, who's been on their hit list since 2006. So he managed to achieve what nobody else has managed to achieve. the constituency in Israel that is against Netanyahu's policy now no longer have an argument. So I think he's in a much stronger political position, and he no longer is under threat of losing his government anymore.
And in terms of what happens at the UN General Assembly, criticism of the Security Council and the UN is that Israel has been long protected diplomatically by the United States. How do you expect the United Nations to react in the next day or two?
Of course, there's going to be shock to the amount of casualties. I mean, 6 buildings were leveled. God knows how many people actually are going to survive this. But also, the important thing in his speech was that he made it as if Israel is fighting this war on behalf of what he called, quote unquote, civilized nations or civilized societies. So he's going to take advantage. And again, that's if indeed they did manage to kill Nasrallah, he's going to do his best to leverage this success to rally some sort of global coalition led by Israel to continue fighting Iran. And like he's not going to stop at this. He will want to reap the benefits of the political benefits of this gain to proceed to the next level that he's aspiring to.
Nizar, thank you very much indeed for the moment. Nizar Farsak there joining us from Washington, D.C. Well, I mentioned the UN General Assembly and we have had a response in the wake of the attack on Beirut. The UN says it's watching the situation with great alarm.
With Lebanon, we are watching the developments unfold in Beirut with great alarm.